Мене звати Володимир Стецик. Я очолюю бізнес-освіту в Київській школі економіки. ГРА В ДОВГУ – це освітня ініціатива сервісу онлайн-платежів в фонді Київської школи економіки за підтримки національного проєкту «Дія бізнес». Тема цієї лекції – категорійний менеджмент, проактивне зниження витрат. Ця лекція буде англійською мовою. A buyer has three main goals – quality, time, cost. Depending on the market balance, it's rather dynamic than static, so finding a balance of quality, time and cost is a major buyer goal. 7-step sourcing approach helps to find the balance. The approach was developed by A.T. Kearney Consulting Company, in which I had a privilege to use it for over 8 years in different countries and industries. So today we will discuss this approach and have some highlights and peculiarities of each of 7 steps. So there are 3 stages of the process: pre-tender, tender, and post-tender. On the pre-tender process, we have 4 steps. Step number 1, analyze category spend, then determine business requirements and conduct market analysis and develop strategy. On a tender stage, we are executing strategy, and that is step number 5. Step number 6 on post-tender stage is collaborate with selected suppliers, and afterwards, step number 7, we have to ensure continuous improvement. On the step number 1, which is analyze category spend, the key input is a historic data from ERP system about prices, volumes, suppliers, and other category relevant information. What are we gonna do here? So first of all, we need to develop so-called category tree. Category tree, it means the list of subcategories or even sub-subcategories which could represent separate groups in this category. Then we need to address the following questions, like what are the key suppliers, what are the key items in that category, who are the key internal customers, and in which items there was the same supplier for a long time. Apparently the list is not exhaustive, so there are many more questions, but at least those have to be addressed. Afterwards, we need to split the regular and one-off expenses. And please don't forget to identify the outliers, also called strange expenses. Prepare the list of questions to the internal customer. So the output of this step gonna be structured information about historic prices, volumes and forecast purchases, historical dynamic and performance of suppliers. Also, the outcome gonna be translated into preliminary cost optimization hypothesis. So we are moving to step number 2, which is determine business requirements. On the input here, we should use internal procurement procedures and processes, specifications, and preliminary cost optimization hypothesis from step number 1. Here, we need to define your internal customer or customers in this category. Align a category spend analysis with the internal customers, identify internal customers' functional needs and expectations regarding the procurement process, describe current procurement process to that internal customer, discuss and validate the process and specification optimization hypothesis, as well as establish a regular platform for communication with internal customers. If everything is managed on this step, the output gonna be understanding of current procurement processes and procedures, including the existing bottlenecks, which typically comes from the internal customer, also understanding of the business requirements of its internal customer, which means the real, true business needs rather than the traditional way to address them, as well as the number 3 output is procurement processes and specification optimization hypothesis, driven ideally by collaborative discussion with the internal customer. Step number 3 is the market analysis. So conducting market analysis requires the following input, like statistical market overview, analytical report, market focus, and list of incumbent suppliers. If it is a new industry or new category for you, please dedicate some time to develop basic understanding of the market. Google, Wikipedia, there are so many sources you can use to develop this knowledge. So you need to answer the following questions like, who are the main market players and how does the market work? For example, direct sales versus sales via distributors. What are the key value chain elements? And what are the key factors impacting the market? How does pricing work, etc., etc. So to find the answer for these questions, you may conduct interviews with the key market players, announce a new bidding cycle. You should also check why some of market players are not participating in your tenders, if it is the case in your category. Also, please convert the market knowledge into cost optimization hypothesis. So the output of this step going to be understanding of how does the market work, understanding of the value chain and pricing models, as well as understanding of market supply-demand balance. A long list of suppliers to be invited to participate in bidding process and the updated list of cost optimization hypotheses. That is the output you could get if you could conduct high-quality market analysis. So let me illustrate the potential outcomes of steps 2 and 3 in an example of so-called TCO, or total cost of ownership concept. In this concept, you probably know that equipment has some specific acquisition costs. However, they are just these costs on the top of the iceberg. As soon as you are buying equipment, you are locked with the supplier of that equipment. That is why you cannot avoid the following costs like supporting materials or small equipment like accessories, spare parts, consumables. In case of a car, it could be, for example, filters. So there could be costs of supporting services, e.g. maintenance. In case of your car, you are using the regular technical services or technical maintenance for your car. That is why you are locked as well. Also, cost of operations, including utilities, petrol. And then the last one is the end of service costs, which means, for example, again, keeping the example of the car, it is trade-in. So if after the operations car is not losing too much market value, you can gain extra money after disposal. So in this case, you gotta get from the market the benchmarks or the target parameters, and if you are dealing with your internal customers, you will compare with the actual performance of the equipment. The deviation between the market targets and the actual performance will drive you to some cost optimization hypothesis and also potential solutions on how can you change your suppliers of equipment in a new procurement cycle. So the three elements we addressed in 3 previous steps are aggregated afterwards in a strategy for category procurement. So step number 4 is develop strategy. As I already mentioned, input is 3 outputs of previous steps, as well as the understanding of supply-demand balance and the full list of cost optimization hypotheses. On this stage, you need to aggregate all cost optimization hypotheses generated on the previous stages into category strategy. Depending on supply and demand balance, you should define 2 up to 4 specific cost optimization methods, and here it is highly recommended to be as specific as possible just to make sure that it is achievable. And the last element on this stage is to conduct strategic workshops with the category stakeholders to change the methods, estimate the risks and potential financial impact. So if you can pass through this step, you're gonna have the output in a form of category strategy, which is detailed into cost optimization methods, risk assessment and mitigation plan, as well as a financial impact assessment. So let me bring another example here. The factors driving demand and supply powers are a combination of factors impacting the market balance. So demand power, or in another word, how strong you are on the market. The factors combine the market share of a relevant demand, some growth perspective offered to suppliers, some opportunities for growth, and how attractive you are as a supplier. From the other side, the supply power depends on such factors as number of credible suppliers. That is why we are trying to increase the number of suppliers as much as possible to decrease the supplier power. Split of the market shares among suppliers, entry barriers, etc., etc. So these elements are anyway combined into 4 basic procurement strategies which might be used depending on the balance. If we are in the area of high demand, it's the most lovely area for the buyer. You can just leverage competition among suppliers, conduct a good tender, and you're gonna get the good, lowest possible price. In area of high supply and high demand power, that's exactly the area of partnership, win-win collaboration between suppliers and buyers. The area of high supply power and low demand power is super unpleasant because it's actually the area of monopolist. Here you need to find a way how to change the nature of demand, decrease consumption as much as possible, or even consider own production. And in the area of low demand and low supply power, it's just manage the spend, set up some benchmarks, and if they are exceeded by any performance of any players, you need to, just block this and double check what's going wrong. So afterwards, we are executing the strategy, and to execute the strategy, we need to use the short list of suppliers, request the proposal, bidding, negotiation tactics. As an input, also you need to use these cost optimization methods agreed before, risk assessment plan, as well as a financial impact assessment. Once you are proactively inviting the short list of suppliers, making sure that they are all available in this tender, please also make sure that the slots are built in a way to support the selected strategy. For example, if you need to bring some small suppliers for supplier development strategies, just split the volumes, it should be small volumes. Also get ready to negotiation in advance. That's a typical mistake if everyone is ready to start negotiation without preparation. So in that case, please pay attention to your opponents. Please align with the participants, your stakeholders from, for example, internal customer team, etc. And apparently, to improve your negotiation position, you need to develop alternatives and to secure no time pressure. It helps you to have a very strong negotiation position. So the output here would be the actually signed contracts with a clear list of suppliers, agreed commercial technical details for further contacting, as well as a calculated, validated financial impact. We are moving further to the step number 6, which is collaborate with selected suppliers. Here, once the contracts are ready to be signed, you need to pay attention just to make it happen, to sign these contracts. Because sometimes if you're losing the momentum, the market changes and it doesn't help you to save the money. So control all formalities are followed and contracts are signed. Make sure that the first delivery was done on time. Especially that's important if you are changing supplier and someone in your company could be not really happy to change supplier. So please pay attention to it and become emergency contact if needed. Also, it's important to define potential bottlenecks to avoid any disruption of operations. For example, working hours of warehouse or any other areas of risk. Also, here please measure and report the financial impact achieved. Here, output gonna be apparently fulfilled contracts, implemented agreed initiatives, and if everything goes right, you're gonna achieve the expected financial impact. The final step in this cycle is the continuous improvement. To elaborate all the previous components, to elaborate a bit broader, to ensure this continuous improvement, you need go beyond just list of optimization initiatives. You need also apply supplier relationship management principles and use best practices from the other categories. Please integrate all category-related cost optimization initiatives into a comprehensive category strategy. Establish supplier relationship management process, which means you need to define strategic partners and high potential suppliers. You need to establish a platform for regular cost optimization collaboration with suppliers, some supplier scoring, feedback process, etc., etc. Also, please manage internal relations. Establish cross-functional collaborations since they are helping to secure continuous improvement. Another important component on this step is platform for best practice sharing. In some categories you could contribute, from the other you will gain this input from your colleagues. So output here gonna be comprehensive category strategy, roadmap to secure sustainability of category for many years. And the next emphasis I would like to keep you with is that it's not one-off approach. 7 steps is a repeatable process. Once you're reaching step number 7, you should think about step number 1 to start this cycle again. In a normal condition, it lasts once in a year, but now we are in post-COVID era, when the market is changing dramatically almost each day. So I would recommend to do it at least twice per year, depending on how market works and depending on the turbulence on the market these days. So, thank you all for your attention.
Дякую, що слідкуєте за нашим проєктом. Залишайтеся з нами, бо бізнес – це гра вдовго.